Okay, hello and welcome to this workshop about self-care for disabled, chronically ill and neurodivergent people. I'm the facilitator. My name's Cleopatra. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman with short red hair, green eyes and a blue cardigan. On this first slide, there is a red picture with the image of a wheelchair and a fist holding a walking stick. The background is red and then there's white writing on top of it that says not a burden. So a bit about this workshop is that, like you, I was quite horrified and enraged by the government's announcement to cut disability benefits and to reform the welfare benefit system. And I was thinking, like, we absolutely need to protest this, but something I've found and heard other people talk about is when they are protesting something and they're really passionate about a cause, there's a high risk of burning out. So I wanted to carve out some time for us to come together as a community and tend to our self-care needs, as these will be vital in sustaining us in our fight against ableism. And I also just wanted to give people a chance to connect with disabled people who've come before us and fought for our rights, because unfortunately our rights aren't generously given to us. They have been something that we've had to fight for. So hopefully we can learn a bit more about that in this. And just to say a bit more about myself is that there's nothing particularly special about me other than, like you, I've gained a lot of experience through my lived experiences of navigating the world as a disabled person. I wanted to offer back to the community, and the things that matched my skill set best was making a workshop. But just I want to let you know that you living your life as a disabled person is a radical act in itself, and you're doing enough, especially in a world that wasn't designed for you. So if you feel moved to do something after this workshop, even if it's just like, or importantly, if it's incorporating some self-care activities into your week, then I highly encourage you to do so. Right, so what to expect from this workshop? I'm going to start with a guided meditation, and then I will give you some information about disabled protesters. We'll do a creative activity, and then there'll be a completely optional space to share. We're going to then have a break of 10 minutes. And once we come back, I'll talk you through the 7 different types of rest. And we'll discuss some ways to get involved with disability justice. And we'll end with a guided meditation where I'll recite some affirmations to you and then say goodbye afterwards, and space to, I'll send a link for people to give feedback. Okay, now for our guided meditation, I'd like you to relax your jaw, release your shoulders, untense your shoulders, and you can shut your eyes if that feels comfortable to you, or let your gaze fall gently on a spot in the room around you. The guided meditation we're going to do is ocean breathing. And the way that works is we'll breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and then breathe out for 8. And as we breathe out, we make the sound of an ocean wave, like a shh. Okay, I'm going to count for us, but feel free to go completely at your own pace. Like, you know your body best, so do what works for you. Okay, now we're going to breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4, hold, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. Shh. 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and out. Shh. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one. Breathe in. Hold. and out. Okay, thank you for joining in with that. Now let's jump in with the disabled protesters and activists I'm going to tell you about. So I've got a list of 9, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. There are plenty more, and there's also going to be people who history hasn't documented, but they're part of our lineage and community of disabled, chronically, or neurodivergent peers. So I thought it'd be great to learn about what they've done and take inspiration from it. First up, we have Judy Human. We've got 2 pictures of Judy. The one on the left is in black and white. She has brown shoulder-length hair. She's wearing hexagonal glasses. She's sat in a manual wheelchair, wearing a black coat, and she's speaking into a microphone. The next picture shows her sitting in a powered wheelchair with brown hair to her shoulders. She's wearing glasses, wearing a blue top, and she's smiling. So Judy was a very key person in getting the Americans with Disabilities Act passed. She was also very involved in Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. And something that sparked her protesting spirit and desire to correct injustices was the fact that she had polio as a child, and this led to her being a wheelchair user. But in the US, she wasn't permitted to attend public school, and that exclusion led her to fight for change. There's a brilliant documentary on Netflix called Crips, which talks about the 504 sit-in, where Judy and some other disabled protesters took part in the longest nonviolent occupation of a federal building, and that led to the creation of the first US law to protect disabled people from discrimination. In the documentary, it shows footage of disabled people sleeping on the floor, like getting makeshift mattresses, being very creative at problem solving, such as when the police shut down the communication lines and telephone lines to the building. Deaf people were using American Sign Language to sign and speak to people outside the building in order to give press releases. It's a great documentary. I'd really encourage you to watch it. Next up, we have Marsha P. Johnson. And Marsha was a Black transgender activist and drag performer. You can see her in this picture. She is a Black woman. She is smiling and wearing red lipstick. She's wearing a pink dress and has a flower crown around her head. Marsha is known for her role in starting the Stonewall riots of 1969. And basically the Stonewall in the US, it was illegal to serve drinks catered to LGBTQIA people. So the mafia ran Stonewall Inn, and they ran it without a liquor license, and they paid off the police. But one day they must have not paid them off because police raided the Stonewall Inn. And Marsha was one of a few people who fought back and resisted her arrest, and that led to rebellion, which now we commemorate in June as Pride Month, in memory of the Stonewall riots that she instigated. Because Pride has always been a protest, and that's something that we need to, a spirit we need to continue in today's times as well. Something about Marsha is that she was HIV positive, and she also has experienced psychosis episodes in her life, and she channeled her passion about HIV and AIDS to do activism with the group ACT UP, which stands for AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. And because of the work that she did, and in combination with other AIDS activists, people who are now HIV positive can live the same life expectancy as someone who is not, if they have access to the correct treatment and medication, which is a huge step considering in not so many years ago, a diagnosis of HIV would lead to AIDS and would essentially be a death sentence. Okay, now we've got Barbara Lisicki and Alan Holdsworth. In the image, Alan is wearing a black shirt with his arms raised up. He has a red hat on, white short hair, a red tie, red trousers and red shoes, and he's sitting in a manual wheelchair. On the far right is Barbara, and she is wearing a black top and black trousers and has shoulder-length blonde hair. And in the middle of them, they have their daughter, who's wearing a black top with pink writing that says "Piss on Pity." The three of them are white. And behind their daughter is a bus stop, which has "Piss on Pity" written in pink upon it. And that was the slogan of the Disabled People's Direct Action Network, which was founded in the 1990s by Barbara Lisicki and Alan Holdsworth. And they did lots of things like led protests against inaccessible public transport and fought for the Disability Discrimination Act 1995 in the UK. We now have buses in London that have space for a wheelchair user, but it's also often used by parents pushing prams. And the reason we have this space is because people of the Disabled People's Direct Action Network fought for this, and they used slogans such as "Piss on Pity," "Transport for All," and "Rights Not Charity." The BBC film adaptation of their life was recommended to me. I haven't seen it yet, but it's called "Then Barbara Met Alan," which talks about the work they did and the work that they are still doing as activists. So here are two images that show the direct action when the Disabled Action Network blocked buses at Oxford Street, which is a very busy street in London. This happened on January the 28th, 1995. In the top left picture, it's in black and white, and there are multiple wheelchair users sat in front of a double-decker 53 bus, and the wheelchair users are handcuffed to the bus, and someone is taking a picture of them. In the bottom right picture, there is a disabled person who is being lifted by their arms by two police officers because they are handcuffed to the double-decker bus that is behind them. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about Mia Mingus, Alice Wong, and Sandy Ho. They can be seen in the picture. They are three Asian American women, and Mia is on the left. She's wearing glasses and has her hair up in a bun. Alice is in the middle. She's wearing a brightly colored scarf and a BiPAP mask, which helps her breathe. And then Sandy is on the right. She has shoulder-length wavy hair. Above them is the phrase "access is love," and the O in the word love is a red love heart. Okay, Mia, Alice, and Sandy are the organizers of the Disability and Intersectionality Summit of 2018. And this was a conference which focused on addressing how disability intersects with other aspects of identity, such as race, gender, sexuality, class, and immigration status. It aimed to amplify the voices of disabled people who are also marginalized in other ways, challenging the mainstream disability rights movement, which often centers white, middle class, and cisgender perspectives. They are also the creators of the Disability Visibility Project, also known as DVP, which is an online community dedicated to creating, sharing, and amplifying disability media and culture. And the phrase and rationale for what they're doing is that disabled narratives matter and they belong to us. So we should be the ones telling our own stories. And as part of this, they created the hashtag Access is Love to teach people more about how to make their events accessible and their resources accessible too. Now we've got Dolly Sen, and they are a working class queer artist interested in disability and the madness given to us by the world. And Dolly's artwork is often subversive, uses dark humor and satire to expose injustices within psychiatric care and society. Shown in the image is one of my favorite of her performance art pieces, which is when she sectioned the DWP. And she can be seen in this image with shoulder-length brown hair. She's wearing a blue face mask, a black t-shirt that says section the DWP, and she's wearing a white lab coat. She's holding a stethoscope, which on one end is in both her ears and the other is held to the entrance sign for the Department of Work and Pensions. Dolly's had a very varied career throughout the years, including being a child alien in the film The Empire Strikes Back. They've written over 10 books. As I mentioned, they sectioned the DWP. They've TripAdvisored a psychiatric hospital. And recently she's been commissioned by Dada Fest to make a sculpture. And she chose to make this sculpture about disabled rage. And on Dolly's Instagram, there's a video about it in which they recite a poem that is on the theme of disabled rage, and I'd really recommend having a look at it. Now we've got Leah Lakshmi Pipsna Samarasina, and they are a brown woman wearing purple lipstick, smiling at the camera, wearing a black top and have green hair. So Leah is a key voice in the disability justice movement, and which centers Black, Indigenous people of color. And she talks a lot about community interdependence and radical accessibility, and gives guidance on community-based models of care. Taken from Leah's website, it says they are from Burgher and Tamil Sri Lankan, Irish and Ukrainian, Galician Roma lineage, sick, disabled and autistic, a non-binary femme on the stoop, a survivor and a grown-up runaway, now making home a family. Leah is one of the lead performers of the disability justice performance collective called Sins Invalid, and a lot of their work is on YouTube. Leah is also an educator, poet, activist, and multi-award-winning writer with a lifetime of work documenting the complexities of queer of color, disabled, and femme experiences. She's authored and co-edited at least 10 books, and including Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice, which I'm currently reading at the moment, and I'd highly recommend it. Number 7 is Andrew Gerzer, and Andrew can be seen in the image sat on a powered wheelchair, and the headrest of the wheelchair has an orange hat on it. He is wearing a blue t-shirt, and they have shaved head, a little bit of stubble, and they're looking to the left. Andrew is a disability awareness consultant, and they're also a sex toy creator and disability advocate. So Andrew is the chief disability officer and co-founder of Bumpin', which is a sex toy company for and by disabled people, and it caters to people who need adjustments and to their sex toys in order for them to be accessible to them. And Andrew also is the host of a multi-award-winning podcast called Disability After Dark, where he shines a bright light on disability stories and interviews many different disabled people. He's also the creator of the viral hashtag Disabled People Are Hot, because it's true, we are. Okay, number 8, we've got Aubrey Smalls. Now, he is a creative of many hats. He's a historian, a filmmaker, speaker, consultant, actor, writer. He is very active on Instagram and TikTok, I believe, at the handle Dwarfism History. He talks about his experiences of dwarfism and more in his film called Dear Average Height People. He can be seen in the photo. He is a Black man with bleach blonde shaved hair. He's wearing glasses. He's wearing a white top, blue trousers, white shoes, and is leaning on a scooter that you can push along with your foot. He is standing in front of a green bush which has pink flowers. And now, finally, but again, not an exhaustive list, is Sukhsheen Kaur. And she can be seen in this image wearing a white top. She's a brown woman and has very long, dark brown hair. She is the founder and CEO of Chronically Brown, which is a nonprofit organization working towards tackling the stigma of disability within the South Asian community. And the reason she started Chronically Brown is as a result of her own experiences, where she found that people were not understanding or accepting her disabilities. As part of this, she launched a campaign with the hashtag DesiAbled in order to tackle the stigma of disabilities in South Asian communities and to increase representation of disabled South Asians. She also has autism. She also is autistic and has ADHD, and has talked about this in interviews about how it has shaped her experiences and her ways of challenging people's ableist beliefs. Okay, now we've got a creative activity that I'd like to invite you to do. So I'd like you to choose a disabled person, either from the list I've given today, don't worry, I'll put them back up on the screen, or feel free to choose any person of your own choice. And I'd like you to write them a letter. And this can be written by hand, on your laptop or phone. You can do it in your imagination, or if you mute yourself, you can soliloquize, speaking out loud to them. And if you're not sure what to say, some optional prompts are telling them about you, how do you feel and what do you care about. You can tell them why you have chosen to write this letter to them specifically. You can ask them for guidance or strength in navigating these difficult times. So yeah, essentially write a letter to one of these people or any other disabled person of your choice. And you have 15 minutes to do so. There's 3 minutes left. Okay, and that is time up for the writing. So maybe finish the sentence you're on. Now we have space to share, but this is completely optional. So if you want, you can like pick a favorite line or two from your letter and put it in the chat. I can tell you a bit about my one. So I wrote to the Disabled Action Network. So that was Barbara and Alan. And I was saying to them, I was asking for strength from their protests and that I can channel into ours. And I was also just telling them a bit about my rage and my fear. And yeah, I know that they're still engaged with activism now and clearly have been for a lot of their life. So I kind of was hoping for the same strength to move through the world in a similar way. But yeah, feel free to share if you'd like, but it's completely optional.
Is it okay to tell you rather than write it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I the first thing that came into my head, I actually wrote to my mum, who also has a disability, and since I was born, long before I became disabled, and I wrote, and it was sort of thanking her for all the things that she taught me about being disabled, about having to sort of fight and demand for healthcare and all the little tricks and stuff. Um, but conversely, she also she falls for all the nonsense from the press, from the right-wing press, about like just scapegoating disabled people. Just does that thing, gets in a rage about all the benefit cheats, even though she's on benefits and I'm on. So she's like, so it's sort of like, how grateful I was for like all this positive stuff that she taught me, but like, why do you believe this when, and she can't even see how it affects her and the actual consequence of it for her as well as all of us. That's what my letter was about.
Oh, that sounds really emotionally complex. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it makes me think about how vicious ableism is, because we can internalize it and try and move through the world balancing all these plates that, yeah, are very complex. But thank you for sharing that. We now have a rest break of 10 minutes, so feel free to come back at 8 p.m. Hello everyone, welcome back to the second half of the workshop. Hope you had a helpful rest break. Okay, I am now going to tell us about the 7 different types of rest. These are physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, creative, sensory, and social. And there is an image of some pebbles balanced on top of each other. The first type of rest that I'm going to tell you about is physical rest. And this is needed when the body is tired and needs some time to recover. And signs that you might need more of this: perhaps you have a busy lifestyle, a busy job. Are you lacking in physical energy? Are you experiencing muscle soreness, a weakened immune system, and brain fog? If so, then it's possible that you need more physical rest. And the obvious the obvious suggestion would be to sleep or nap, but it can also be restful to gently stretch or do some breathing exercises, yoga nidra, have a relaxing bath or a massage. I find that if I need physical rest, but I'm unable to fall asleep, then doing like a yoga nidra is really helpful for me. But something that is important to know about physical rest is if you are physically resting, but you're not mentally resting, then it kind of undoes the physical rest. So if you are, or you don't get the most out of the physical rest as possible. So if while you're lying down, your mind is still going and it's generating worries, or you're spending your time lying down thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Like after I've had a rest, like I'm going to do this, this, and this, then that's not making the most out of the physical rest. So we need all the different types of rest. And I'm now going to tell you about mental rest, which is when we allow space to declutter and calm the mind and slow the pace. Signs you might need more of this is that, is your mind regularly racing? Are you struggling to sleep? Or are you struggling to stay present and focused on one thing? Have you noticed that you're easily irritated or frustrated, or that you're making lots of mistakes? If so, then suggestions for mental rest are mindfulness and meditation. And there are actually loads of different types of mindfulness and meditation. So if you find that the ones you're doing or the standard ones aren't right for you, or if you have trauma in your body and connecting to your body in those ways feels difficult or uncomfortable for you, then there's loads of different ways you could take mental rest, such as like coloring or creating a safe space to switch off. So perhaps that means like you don't have work emails on your phone. Or something I do is that I kind of allot almost like office hour time for myself, and I'm like, right, between the hours of 6 and 8, I'm going to reply to like messages and check my emails, but outside of that time, like I am on do not disturb mode. There's also the suggestion of getting lost in an easy to watch program or easy to read book. My PA is often encouraging me to start watching EastEnders, and they think that that's a perfect example of this, but feel free to share any other of your favorite comfort shows, because I'm always looking to find more. The third type of rest is emotional rest, and that is needed to give us space to check in with ourselves and rest from situation where we are holding the space for others. And the way you can tell if you need emotional rest, there are some signs, such as perhaps you work in a role with highly charged emotional spaces, perhaps you're holding space for other people while they're in very emotional states. Have you noticed that you've got an increase in challenging emotions, fear, anxiety, depression? Or have you caught yourself focusing on the negatives a lot? A sign that I noticed is when my health declined, I found that I was spending a lot of time and emotional energy holding space for other people in my life who were struggling to cope with the reality of what I was going through. So I found that people were so upset because they loved me so much that it hurt them to know that I was hurting. But then I found that I was holding emotional space by trying to reassure them. And in the end, when I realized I needed emotional rest, I had to put in boundaries to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't talk about this, like, or I'm sick of talking about it, let's distract ourselves. Or I'd signpost them to like a carer's website where there's like a free hotline or something. But other suggestions for emotional rest would be like learn what refreshes you. It can be hard to know that, so it's good to know what refreshes you. So it's good to kind of get curious and be a bit experimental. It's good to check in with your emotions regularly throughout the day. And now this can be quite hard, especially if you have interoception difficulties or alexithymia, or you're just not practiced in doing it. And ways to check in with your emotions that I find helpful are like using an emotion wheel, which has like lots of descriptions of different feelings, and then it shows the core emotion underneath it. So perhaps I've noticed that the core emotion I'm feeling is anger. That the way I respond to that is going to be very different if the core emotion I'm feeling is sadness. If I'm feeling anger, I might do something like punch a pillow or like throw ice cubes in my garden so they smash or something that like gets out of my body. Whereas if I'm sad, I might like watch a comfort film or watch comedy is one of the suggestions I've mentioned. But yeah, it's good to become aware of ourselves and aware of what affects us, so hopefully we can be preventative and carve out time for emotional rest, or at least notice when we need more of it. There's also spiritual rest, which even if you're not religious, you can still connect to, because it's a personal sanctuary and it's where we check in and reclaim a sense of peace. And signs you might need more spiritual rest are perhaps you are craving safety and stability. Perhaps you're experiencing emotions of being helpless, numb, or apathetic. Or are you disconnected from your beliefs? Or are you unaware of your beliefs? Are you disconnected to your values and you want to realign with them? Well, suggestions for incorporating more spiritual rest are meditation, because it is such a varied thing. There's often ways to adapt it to make it work for you, but if it doesn't, there's also journaling. There's also prayer. We can also explore what's troubling you or surrender your circumstances to the care of a higher power. And I found that growing up, I was brought up in quite a strict religious household, and it was very hypocritical and upsetting to be a part of. Whereas in my adulthood, I've tried to explore spirituality more, and I found that even just kind of learning about different religions, even if I don't practice them, has like given me a sense of connection to other people by seeing the world through the framework of their beliefs. So I'd also recommend that if you're curious. Creative rest. Now, creative rest allows us space to explore beauty and wonder, which is very important. And even they found that bears, the animal bears, they will also take time to look at beauty and wonder. So signs that you need to have some creative rest would be things that, like, perhaps you have a job that requires a lot of creative thinking, or a hobby that involves a lot of one particular type of creative thinking, but not other types. Do you struggle to see your needs or self-care as a priority? I imagine a lot of people could say yes, they struggle with that. Or do you rarely feel like your work is of value, or you're finding it difficult to enjoy things? Well, if that's the case, then we can give ourselves space for a natural response to being creative. And this doesn't mean that we have to monetize our creative hobbies. Like, you have to give yourself permission to just tap into your sense of play that you had as a child, or sense of wonder, and just explore things like art or music or nature, crafts or dance. And on the topic of art, I always feel like I don't understand art. And I've also found that where we're bombarded with so many images just in one day, or like scrolling through the internet means that I get so many images that I don't fully take in the details. Something a lecturer of mine encouraged was something called slow looking, where you take an image or a photo or a painting, perhaps in a book or in a gallery or on the internet, and you set a timer from, he suggested 2 hours, but honestly, even if you just do it for 10 minutes, you'd be really amazed how much detail you end up picking out of the image, or that reveals itself to you, and you end up noticing kind of different emotional connections or associations. Like a little spider diagram, your mind might generate other like connections to beauty and wonder. I found that even just doing the image descriptions for the images in this workshop, I ended up noticing things in a lot more detail when I challenged myself to highlight the focuses, such as I didn't notice before that someone was handcuffed to a windscreen wiper. Okay, sensory rest. This is reducing overstimulation of a sense we often experience. So a sign that you need more sensory rest would be that you're entering sensory overload, where your whole body is overstimulated and you just want to shut down and detach or escape from the situation you're in. Perhaps you're having like an adverse reaction to loud sounds, bright lights. You're struggling with strong sensory experiences like fireworks, concerts, loud workplaces, or are your eyes tired? You've got strained vision. Well, if that's the case, there's suggestions of how you can incorporate sensory rest. And some people will find that they just need to incorporate sensory rest if they've been using one particular sense a lot and need to zoom in on other ones, such as they've been doing a lot of reading or working on screens, so they want to like give their eyes a break. So what I do when that happens is I'll like wear an eye mask and lie down in the dark and play some nice music or listen to a podcast and just zoom into my sense of hearing and give my eyes a break. But some people may find that they have strong sensitivities to all senses, or find just leaving the house very overstimulating. And if that's you, then it's extra important to plan in sensory rest after or before you know that you're going to be exposed to those things. So there's different meditations you can use where you focus on one of your senses to tune out the others. It's good to identify what your main sensory stresses are and spend time away from it. So if you find that, I don't know, like traveling on the bus is always really noisy and smelly, then like you can plan ways around it, like wear noise cancelling headphones. Or there's also suggestions such as take a break from screens and technology. I'd highly encourage you to cut the itchy tags out of your clothes. I think it is an act of self-care to only wear clothes that are comfortable to us and to cut out tags or itchiness that will distract from us. There's also stimming to process exposure to sensory input, and to regulate our nervous systems. What was I going to say? I can't quite remember, but you get the picture of sensory rest. Oh, I was going to say a sense that I've heard a lot of people say that they don't pay attention to is touch. So I have a little challenge for you to find a texture of something that you really like. Perhaps it's like one of your pieces of clothing, or like a soft blanket, or a pet, like a cat or a dog, and just like zoom into the sensation of touch. And finally, number 7 is social rest. And social rest reconnects us to people we love and gives time for rewarding relationships. And signs that you need social rest would be, are you feeling a sense of social overload? Perhaps your battery is drained and you're feeling detached and lonely, or you struggle with face-to-face communication. Perhaps you're craving time of being alone, or feeling overwhelmed by your plans, or a reluctance to make social plans. And if so, ways to get social rest would be to be selective with the people that you actively choose to spend time with. So invest in people who you find will refresh you or revive you. And it's also important to seek connection where you can be fully accepted. And sometimes this isn't necessarily in our personal lives, but there may be like a peer support group or a charity that does meetups that you find you can interact with people who, yeah, you feel fully get you and accept you. It's also important in regards to social rest to schedule in alone time with yourself. And I genuinely mean like get your calendar out and schedule in an activity that you want to do on your own to reset. For example, and you need to tell people that you're unavailable during this time. So you need to hold that boundary with yourself and not compromise on your alone time. So if someone says to you, oh, what are you doing on Wednesday at 4 p.m.? Do you want to hang out? And you're like, oh, that sounds nice, but let me check my calendar. And you see that Wednesday 4 p.m. is the time you've carved out to repot your plants or spend some alone time, then you have to say, no, I'm unavailable, I'm busy, because you are busy. You've got plans with yourself. Okay, I've talked you through the 7 types of rest. And now I want to set you the task of identifying an area of rest that you need more of, and then plan in one activity you can do this week to give you this rest. I went to a protest on Saturday, and I know there was another one yesterday at the announcement of the spring statement. So I definitely need to, when I've done something like that, I definitely need to factor in types of rest. So yeah, take 2 minutes to choose some rest for yourself. Okay, hopefully we've all had a think and have planned in some gentle, caring activities for ourselves. Okay, now we're going to move on to the section about what can we do to further our cause of disability justice, especially in relation to announcements in the UK. Well, there's a UK open consultation. I'm going to put the link of it in the chat, and I can also email them to you alongside the recording after this. Now, what is the open consultation? Essentially, the government want to gain the opinions and suggestions of people in Britain on the plan for pathways to work, reforming the benefits and support to get Britain working. I believe we have until June to fill this out, and it's really important that disabled people and people with marginalized voices who are underserved by our government and our community get the chance to say what they believe in and to make suggestions of what would help. And one way that can be done is through the open consultation. There are also some grassroots disabled-led organizations that campaign against austerity measures. And 2 of these that are being quite active at the moment is the Disabled People Against Cuts and Crips Against Cuts. So on this page, on this slide, there is the logo for Disabled People Against Cuts, and that logo is a colorful circle with a black triangle in the middle with white letters saying DPAC, and coming out of the triangle are 4 hands with various skin tones, and it says Disabled People Against Cuts around it. And then the Crips Against Cuts is on the red background and written in white writing. So they've done a lot of direct actions protests in the past and are working on some now. And a slogan that's often used by them is nothing about us without us. So I yeah, the Disabled People Against Cuts have got a website with lots of contact details for different groups. I will send that in the chat now. There's also going to be an online protest by Crips Against Cuts happening this Saturday. And if you find them on YouTube or go to any of their online social media sites, such as this was taken from Instagram, you can join the online protest over Zoom or watch it live on YouTube. And it is very, it's a very great form of protesting, because just because we're not in the streets doesn't mean we're invisible. Okay, let me send those links. And I've also included in the chat the link to the WhatsApp group for Crips United. They have multiple different community chats on WhatsApp, varying from everything from debating to interregional coordination to believe they've got like creative groups as well. Okay, something else we can do is to email our MPs. Let me share in the chat a website called Write to Them, which if you go to this site and then put in your postcode, it will tell you who your MP is, and it will give you a direct way to draft an email and send it to them. And it tells you all the things that you need to fill out, such as you need to include your address in order for the MP to accept your email. There's also some Google Docs that I've included that share email templates for emailing your MP. So if you're not quite sure what to write or how to phrase things, you can use that for guidance. The important thing to remember about email templates is that it's really important to put in at least a sentence or two of your own, or create your own paragraph or share your own views. Because if MP email inboxes get too many identical emails, such as if everyone just copies and pastes the same template, then the email inbox will mark them as spam. Yeah, there's also the Access is Love group, who I talked about in Out of the Disabled Activists. They have a list of readings and resources. And I'd also like to encourage us to talk about our favorite disabled content creators online, if that's something we engage with, or any other resources we'd like to recommend. Feel free to say them out loud or put them in the chat. For example, two of my favorite online disability advocates are Imani Barbarin, who can be found at Crutches and Spice, and Jessica Kelgren-Fozzard, who is on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, I believe, as at Jessica Out of the Closet. Let me just see. Okay, I'll also email you all these links, so don't worry about having to save them all now. Okay, the final stage of this workshop is to close. We're going to do another guided meditation, but this time I'm going to share some affirmations with you. So if you'd like to get yourself as comfortable as possible and release your shoulders, relax your jaw, untense your face if you're holding any tension in it, and feel free to close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you, or let your gaze fall gently on a stationary spot in the room around you. Okay, let's take 3 deep breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth. 1, 2, 3. Okay, keep breathing deeply and at a pace that feels right for you. And I'm going to read some affirmations. Feel free to say them along after me or let them sink into yourself as I say them. I am not a burden. My health challenges and ableism are a burden to me, and people who love me will help me carry the weight of and navigate these burdens. I am not a burden. My voice and perspective make the world a better place. I deserve allies and friends who stand up for me and other disabled folk. It is not my job to teach them. My life speaks as it is. My existence is radical. My disabled joy is sacred. I am enough, just the way I am. My body deserves the support of my mobility aid. It is powerful to accept that I need to use one. It is an act of love to care for myself. When I use my mobility aid or any assistive device, or when I ask for support from someone, I am giving those around me permission to do the same without shame. I believe my story. I don't need to convince others. I can validate myself and gravitate towards people who validate me. If that doctor is unhelpful, gaslighting, or discriminatory, I will protect my peace and ask for a second opinion. Okay, keep breathing. I am lovable, just the way I am. I am not too much to be loved. My needs are not too big to be loved. I am lovable. I respect myself and my accommodations. I will speak to my mind and body with the same compassion I would use when speaking to a friend. My life is worth protecting. My rights are worth fighting for. Our lives are worth protecting. Our rights are worth fighting for. I am not alone in this fight. I have solidarity with the disabled community. I am doing enough. My unapologetic existence is radical, and my disabled joy is powerful. My life is meaningful. My employment status does not define me. I measure my life in laughter, meaningful experiences, and feelings of connectedness. My worth is not measured in productivity. Okay, thank you for joining me in that guided meditation. When you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes and come back to the room around you. And that's the end of this workshop. Thank you so much for being a part of it. In order for me to know what went well and how I can improve, I have just sent a link to give anonymous feedback, or I'm going to stop the recording now, so feel free to stick around and chat if you'd like to, or let me know what came up for you during this. Thank you.